Let me give you a few numbers about a single place on Earth. Across the whole year, this is the hottest inhabited place on the planet, not by its record highs, but by its average. Day and night, summer and winter, the mean temperature here sits higher than anywhere else people actually live. And on an ordinary afternoon, the air regularly climbs past 50 degrees Celsius. That's over 120 degrees Fahrenheit. The ground sits more than 100 meters below sea level. There are springs of water here, so acidic they can burn skin on contact, with a pH approaching that of battery acid. And in the mountains just above, there is a lake, not of water, but of molten lava, that for most of the last century glowed open to the sky, one of only a handful like it anywhere on Earth. Put those numbers together and you get a landscape that doesn't look like Earth at all. It looks like another planet. In fact, scientists come here specifically to study what life might look like on Mars. But here is the part that makes this place truly extraordinary. People live here, and the ground beneath their feet is, at this very moment, slowly tearing itself apart to give birth to a brand new ocean. This is the Danakil Depression. Let me show you the most alien place on the face of the Earth. It lies in the Afar region of northeastern Ethiopia, spilling toward the borders of Eritrea and Djibouti, in a corner of the world most people will never go near, and, as we'll see, one most people are not able to simply walk into. And the moment you arrive, the planet stops behaving the way you expect. Start with the heat, because it governs everything. The Danakil is not just hot, it's relentlessly, brutally hot, with a year-round average that makes it, by that measure, the hottest inhabited place on Earth. There is almost no rain. The sun hammers down onto a cracked, sunken plain that lies well below the level of the distant sea. Standing there in the afternoon, you are being cooked from above by the sun, and from the sides, by the radiating ground. It is an environment that seems actively hostile to the idea of a human being existing in it at all. And then you reach the part that truly looks like science fiction, a place called Dallol. Dallol is a hydrothermal field, a patch of ground where heat and chemicals rise up from deep in the earth and paint the landscape in colours that don't seem real. Neon yellow, acid green, rust orange, bright poisonous whites. The ground bubbles with springs of hot, intensely acidic water, some of the most acidic natural water found anywhere on the planet, with a pH near the very bottom of the scale into battery acid territory. Around them grow bizarre, delicate formations of salt and sulfur, little towers and terraces in unnatural colours. Toxic gases hiss up through the crust. It smells of sulfur and chemicals. Nothing about it looks like it belongs to this world. It is so extreme, so chemically violent, that scientists study it as a stand-in for other planets and to test the absolute limits of life itself. And they found something humbling. In some of the most extreme pools at Dallol, the combination of acid, salt and heat is so severe that not even microbes, not even the toughest single-celled organisms on Earth, the kind that survive almost everywhere else, can live there. It may genuinely be one of the very few places on the surface of our planet where life, in any form, simply cannot exist. And that's just the ground. Because rising above the depression is one of its other impossible features. A volcano called Terrafying, whose name means, fittingly, the smoking mountain. And for most of the last 100 years, near its summit sat something incredibly rare, a persistent lava lake, a pool of open, molten rock, glowing red and black, that churned away in the open air for decade after decade, when there are only a handful of such lakes on the entire planet. A window straight down into the fire beneath the crust, sitting out in the open at the top of a mountain in the desert. But even that isn't fixed. In 2017, a violent eruption tore open the volcano's flank and drained the long-lived lake away. In the years since, the mountain has been restlessly remaking itself, lava climbing back into the pit overflowing, then collapsing again, the whole summit reshaping itself over and over, which, as you'll see, is the perfect clue to what this entire place really is. On this mountain, nothing stays still for long. Nothing here is permanent. So, to recap the picture, a sunken plain hotter than almost anywhere on Earth, acid springs that can defeat even microbes, a volcano that keeps building and swallowing its own lake of fire. This is, by any reasonable measure, a hellscape, a place that should be utterly, completely empty, except it isn't. And this is the first thing that will genuinely surprise you. People not only visit the Danakil, they work here, they have for thousands of years. The Afar people, who call this brutal region home, are among the toughest human beings on the planet, and they have built a way of life around the one thing the depression has in endless supply: salt. Long ago, this sunken basin was flooded by the sea, and when that ancient water evaporated in the heat, it left behind vast, blinding white plains of salt stretching to the horizon. And out on those salt flats, in temperatures that would put most people in a hospital, the Afar mine it by hand. Using simple tools, they pry and cut the salt from the ground, carving it into rough, heavy blocks. Then they load those blocks onto long caravans of camels and donkeys and walk them for days out of the depression and up into the highlands to trade. It is one of the oldest and one of the harshest jobs left on Earth. Salt from this desert was once so valuable, it was used as money, cut into standard bars and traded across the region. Picture it, a line of camels shimmering in the heat haze, crossing a blinding white plain below sea level, carrying blocks of salt cut by hand from one of the most extreme environments on the planet, exactly as people have done here for countless generations. In the most alien place on Earth, there is this deeply, stubbornly human story of survival. And it's worth saying, even for outsiders, this is not a place you simply drive into. The Danakil sits along a tense, contested border, and it has a history to match. In 2012, a group of tourists was attacked at Erta Ale, and several were killed. Today, anyone travelling into the region typically does so with armed Afar escorts, moving under guard across the salt and up to the crater. It is not just environmentally forbidding, it is genuinely guarded, which is part of why so few people have ever seen it with their own eyes. But I promised you something bigger than the heat, bigger than the acid, bigger than the lava. I told you the ground itself is tearing apart, and this is the secret that ties the entire strange place together. Why is the Danakil like this? Why is it sunken and scorching and volcanic and chemically insane all at once? The answer is that you are standing on one of the rarest seams on the planet, a place where the Earth's crust is not solid and settled, but actively ripping open. Deep beneath the Afar region, three great tectonic plates meet, and they are all slowly pulling away from one another. The land is being stretched, thinned, and pulled apart in three directions at once. That's why it's sinking below sea level. That's why the heat and lava of the deep earth are so close to the surface here. That's why the ground is so restless that even a century-old lava lake can drain away in a single eruption. You are standing on a wound in the crust of the planet, a place where the ground is coming undone, and every so often it shows itself dramatically. In 2005, over a span of just days, a series of enormous cracks tore open across the desert, the ground splitting apart along a rift many kilometers long as the land visibly pulled itself in two. Now, here is the payoff. Where does a process like that end? What happens when a continent keeps stretching and thinning and cracking for long enough? The ocean comes in. Geologists believe that over the coming millions of years, this rifting will continue until the crust finally gives way completely and the waters of the nearby sea come flooding into the sinking basin. When that happens, the Danakil Depression will vanish beneath a brand new ocean, and the Horn of Africa will be split from the rest of the continent, carried off as the land tears fully in two. Sit with that for a moment. This scorching, poisonous, alien desert is not just a strange place. It is a place caught in the act of transformation. You are not looking at a finished landscape. You are looking at the slow, violent birth of a sea and the slow, violent death of a piece of a continent, a window in real time, into forces that usually stay hidden beneath the deepest oceans, laid bare here on dry land for anyone tough enough to reach it. That is the Danakil Depression, hotter by the year than anywhere else people live. So chemically extreme that in places even the microbes give up. Home to an ancient people who cut money from the ground and haul it out by camel under armed guard. And all of it built on a crack in the world that will, one distant day, become the floor of a new ocean. We tend to think of the ground under our feet as the one thing that never changes. The Danakil is proof that it does. It is just waiting for a time scale we can barely imagine. If you want to keep standing in the places where the planet stops behaving the way it's supposed to, the deadly, the alien and the forbidden, then subscribe and come with us. The Earth has stranger corners than this one, and we're only just getting started.